Medicine Grand Rounds. Before I introduce our speaker, I'll get a little housekeeping done. This CME activity is sponsored by the Hawaii Consortium for CME, a joint venture between the HMA and the Johnny Burns School of Medicine. At this time, please enter the name and credentials of everyone viewing Grand Rounds at your site for CME attendance purposes. As a reminder, evaluations are required for CMEs. You can find evaluations by following the link in the chat or at any time on our website or on the email advertisement that you got. Your comments are very important to the planning committee and are used for planning future programs. As you know, all sponsors of CME are required to execute a conflict of interest policy. Dorothy Colby has disclosed that she has no relationships with commercial supporters that could be perceived as a conflict of interest. Dorothy Colby is a certified positive approach to care trainer and national mentor. She's also a Hawaii Alzheimer's Disease Initiative Memory Care Navigator, Dementia Friends Master Trainer and Champion, and Rosalind Carter Institute Dealing with Dementia Trainer. She's a dementia care specialist with more than 20 years of professional and personal experience in caring for people with dementia. She is the Director of Community Engagement at Hali Kuike, residential dementia care facilities, now at 3 sites, Nuuanu, Kaneohe, and Pali. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Dorothy Colby. Many of you know her. She's given many of our Grand Rounds and in fact is one of our most popular speakers. So she's going to be talking today about a very important topic in geriatrics, challenging behaviors. Welcome, Dorothy.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Masaki. I'm so glad to be here. Let me just bring my slides up. I see some people are still coming in and we're doing good on our start time. Let me just share my screen here. Oops, hold on. Let me do that one more time to make sure I got the audio on. Yes, I do. Thank you for your patience. Here we go. All right. All right, thank you so much again for joining me. I was telling Dr. Masaki, I think this particular topic, challenging behaviors in dementia care, is probably the #1 greatest hit of all the dementia care topics, because it's one that we all, for us here together today as professionals, face, and we know how challenging it is for not just the person who's living with dementia, but for everybody in their lives, the healthcare professionals, families, children, spouses, everyone. So thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk about this. And we will be answering questions at the end. So please feel free to enter questions anytime. But what we're going to do today is take a look at kind of the bigger, stepping back and looking at the bigger picture of challenging behaviors for people living with dementia and figure out what's underneath it. What's happening? Well, specifically, what's happening? Why is it happening? What kind of things are underneath the surface that are triggering these? And then digging deeper into what's going on in the brain. That's what is it about these first two, 1, 2, 3 pieces on this agenda here that's making changes in the reactions in the brain. And then after we put all those together, what can we do? What can we do differently? What kind of visual, verbal, and touch connections work better than others? And looking at our role as professionals and how we can help and support the families that are coming to us with these challenges. So I want to take a moment. So when we talk about challenging behaviors, I'd like you to take a moment and think to yourself, like when you looked at this topic, what were the, you can even scribble them down on a paper next to you. What are the 2 challenges that pop up in your mind when you think of a person who's living with dementia? It could be a family member of your own. Many of us have or have had people living with dementia in your lives. For myself, my grandmother had Alzheimer's disease. My father had vascular dementia, and my father-in-law had Parkinson's-related dementia. So 3 very different individuals and 3 very different causes of dementia. And so it was each a unique set of challenges. So for whatever you thought of, let's take a look at this giant list here. chances are the things that you thought of are probably on this list. And as you know, not every person who's living with dementia is going to experience all of these challenges, even throughout the journey of their life, but they will likely, probably at least experience a handful or more of them over the course of the disease process. And if, as professionals, if you've been doing this a while, I'm sure you've seen pretty much every single one of these. So to varying degrees. So the ones that people think of first, they often think of the memory impairment related ones. So losing things, getting lost, not remembering certain things. But it's so much more than that. Other parts of the brain, not just the memory centers, are affected. And so, sleep becomes a problem. Paranoia, delusional thinking, challenges around personal care. So, not wanting to get, to be touched or to get undressed or things like that, and leading to things like striking out or physical aggression. So, yeah, so sometimes I look at this list and I just have to take a deep breath because it's a lot. And a lot of these are for the families and for us as caregivers, they can be very scary, very, very scary. And for the families, there's a lot of shame and embarrassment about it. Even the ones that seem minor to us professionals, like not having impulse control and saying rude things in the store, but the lady next door, like, oh, that lady shouldn't be wearing those pants. They make her butt look big. It's like, shh, mom. I mean, that seems minor compared to some of the other higher challenging behaviors we face. But the mortification that families feel, it really, can be really heartbreaking. And anyway, so I want to start with the slides today and the training techniques, this particular dementia education philosophy that we use here at Hollywood and that I teach publicly. It's called the Positive Approach to Care, developed by Teepa Snow, who's an occupational therapist. It starts with, everything we do starts with these beliefs, that the relationship is the most critical thing, not the necessary outcome, but starting with the relationship, and that we are the key to make life worth living. And the people that we're trying to help, people living with dementia, are really doing the best they can every single moment of the day, even when the best they can is not very well at all. But they really, with the brains they have at this moment in time, they are truly trying to do their best. And we are remembering who's the one with the healthy brain, which of us has the capability of flexibility and change, and it's us. So keeping these things in mind, I want to kind of move forward to, if you were to put your two hands together, and then I don't know if you're in a public place or not, but go ahead and give it a try. If we were doing it in real life, you could do it with another person. But when you push on one hand and you push, the other hand wants to push back. Like the more you push, the more it pushes back. But when you're pushing, but then stop, but stay connected, the other person stops pushing. So it takes two to tangle. It takes two to make a fight. We want to learn to be willing to stop and back off. So when you find yourself pushing, so as a family caregiver, just repeating it over and over again, or even a professional, you're a walker, you have to take your walker. Do you want to fall down again? And if you find yourself stuck in that loop, stop. Being right doesn't necessarily translate to a good outcome. And we need to take a step back and look, is what we're doing really helping, or are we starting to escalate things ourselves? Because a lot of times in our sincere, heartfelt efforts to help, we're actually working the person up. We don't realize it. We think it's them. And a lot of the challenge does come from the situation and the changes in the brain. But again, this pushing, it becomes a big part of it, because how many of us really like to be told what to do? Especially so directly? Not many. So why is it so challenging for people who are living with dementia? And this is something that it can be very hard when you're working with families for people to wrap their heads around, is that it's not just about memory loss. That is the hallmark that people look for, but if your whole brain is affected, depending on which type of dementia it is, different parts of the brain affected more or less or differently, but it's the whole control center. So the verbal skills, actions, feelings, the rhythm of the day, it varies. It's all because of the brain change. And it is, as you know, a progressive degenerative brain diseases that cause dementia. So over time, it keeps changing. And that makes it so much complicated, more complicated for families and for medical professionals. People can have more than one kind of dementia. So you can have Alzheimer's disease and have strokes. You can have Parkinson's and have been a lifelong abuse of alcohol. And so those, again, and each individual person is unique. So it really starts to take, because it is so complicated, the picture of the person, human being, we need to take a step back. And I'm like, I think of that Sherlock Holmes hat, put on like the detective hat and take a step back and look at what is happening. Why is it happening? What makes it better or worse without that judgment? So that's another big timeout thing that I would say for ourselves is a lot of the way we talk about and look at challenging behaviors carries a lot of judgment because it is so hard. This person is aggressive. This person is belligerent. This person is uncooperative with care, and those things can be very true. But I want us, as a course of this, we're going to take a little step back from that and kind of reframe it and look at it from the person who's living its point of view. Why am I? What am I trying to do by being aggressive? What am I trying to achieve? Well, how do I see things? And that'll help us to be able to look at how we can help more. So I want us to take a look at this 6 pieces of the puzzle. So we're going to look at each one. So this is where I become being like a detective, is we're going to look at the person. So this package, we're each in this package. So if you think of yourself, who you are, what's your personality like? What do you like or don't like? What's your history? Do you have history of past trauma? Are you an introvert who doesn't like to be around, a lot of people at one time or not for long periods of time? Our health and wellness. This house we're in. This is the one house we get for our whole lifetime. When we're young, sometimes we treat it like a rental property and we think it's going to last forever. Maybe we didn't take such good care of it, but this is the one we get. And over the course of our lives, when all the way living to the most common age bracket that we start to see people who are living with dementias, generally in their 80s and older, there's a lot of health and wellness and fitness history that is water under the bridge at that point. Brain changes. So that's the cognitive changes. What things are causing this, and what kind of change and damage has happened up to this point now from Alzheimer's disease, strokes, whatever it is. So there's those 3. And then the next 3, the stakeholders. Stakeholders are the people. So if you put up, so one person's living with dementia, if you put your thumb up like this, and I make a big circle, everybody around them is living with it too. This person is not living in a bubble, and they cannot get through the day or even this next moment sometimes without us to help support and fill in the gaps for them from moment to moment. So everybody around them, who are those people? It's you, it's me, it's family, it's neighbors. Could be the mailman who comes every day and does a little check-in. Everybody has an effect on that person, for better or sometimes for worse. But they are the stakeholders. And then there's the environment. What's it like around? It could be a home environment, long-term care environment, hospital, or any other kind of acute care setting. What is that like, and how is that perceived? And then there's the time. What's happening during the day? All day, moment to moment. So when we're looking at challenging situations, the classic one that people tie to a clock is sundowning. Well, what happened before that and before that? And taking a look. So it really does, because there are so many pieces to the puzzle. I'm going to call these all 6 up here, right, like this here, so you can take a look at them all at once. Now you'll notice that the top 3 are in red and the bottom 3 are in green. No one piece is more important than the other pieces, But I want us to take a look at the top three and think about for a moment. For this person, the person living with dementia, let's say it's a patient that you have who's 85, female, mid-stage Alzheimer's disease. How much of the person, who they are, who they were, the personality traits, do you have are you able to affect change on? Not, you can't really change that part, can you? Fitness and health and wellness. We do work with medications and we want to have as good a diet as possible. But are these medications and diets meant to turn back the clock and, you know, reverse the condition, or is it more of a maintenance? We want to try and keep it as good as possible for as long as can. Chances are it's more maintenance. We're trying not to lose more ground on this point, but the focus is generally on comfort and on enjoying, for example, with dietary things, enjoying the food that you like as much as you can at that point in your life. And then the brain change. No magic wand can erase any of the dementias, unfortunately. There's no medication, no treatments that can reverse any of the causes of dementia, not counting the things like delirium and things like that. But we want to figure out what we can affect change on or not. So not counting the ones that we can affect change on. Those top three, there's not that much. I mean, we can do things to help, but the biggest area that we can make a huge difference with the challenges that people are having. So I'm going to reframe at this point. Yes, they are having challenging behaviors. And we think of it as challenging behaviors, and we think of who's it a challenge for generally? Me, right? This person is driving me, my mom is driving me crazy. You know, this patient will not stay in, you know, the wheelchair. They keep standing up and falling. It's generally all about them. So I'm going to call a timeout and pause for a moment. I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm having a hard time. It happens to make a hard time for you too, unfortunately, but I'm doing the best I can. What can we, the stakeholders around the person, change? Who's involved with them? So if you think about the stakeholders, you have kind of thumbs up, people who, when they're around, make a real positive difference, make things better. Then there's neutral, people who are like, yeah, it's okay, but not worse. And then thumbs down, people who, and I don't mean thumbs down like they're bad people, but it makes things harder. And it's not any one of theirs fault, but we're figuring out who is the best support team, building a good support team. You all are a critical part of that in helping families build the network that they need early as possible. So many people wait till very late in the disease process to then try and start to build a care team, but building that kind of positive supportive care team for the person and for the family caregiver that's at home or caring for them. It's really, really important. We can have a huge impact there. Environment, huge, huge impact. You know, is it friendly? Is it forgiving? These 4 F's and 4 S's, you know, for an example of a surface that and sensation that wasn't right. You know, we had a chair at Halikuike that I happened to sit in one day, and I was like, what's poking me in my backside? And I sat down again, and I realized there was a spring. It hadn't busted through, so you couldn't tell by looking, that really made the chair quite uncomfortable. And it caused me to keep wanting to get up. Well, if it had been a resident, and I'm sure it must have been at some point, because we didn't know that chair had that resident sit in a chair, what would that resident have been called, or what would have been written in the nursing records for that patient for that day? Probably restless, maybe eventually agitated because we keep telling them to sit back down. But what's behind it? In this case, could have been a very uncomfortable chair at that point. And then this one time, figuring out what are they doing? We all as human beings need a balance of productive leisure, wellness, and restorative time. And we're always trying to find the right balance. If you drew a pie chart for yourself, I'm sure you'd wish some wedges were bigger than they are for your 24-hour period. But a lot of times when people who are living with dementia, as their dementia progresses, and they lose abilities, they lose the ability to engage on their own, initiate for productive or leisure or wellness. And a lot of times they start to lose that balance and that feeling of being needed and contributing and feeling whole. So we can give that back to them. And the last one is waiting. If you think about for ourselves how good waiters we are, think about yourself when you walk into a grocery store and you see a long line, and it's like, sometimes I'll turn around and walk out. I'm not even gonna go there. I can shop another time. We're not very good at waiting in traffic. Our brains don't like to wait. But think about the people we know who are living with dementia. How much time of their day, if you were drawing their pie chart, how much time of their day would you put as waiting? I've had people draw pie charts where it's 90% of the day waiting for someone to come, to transfer, to eat, to move from one place to the other. It's a lot of the day. And so that a lot of times that can be a contributor to challenging behaviors, that wait time. The other thing I want us to take a look at is unmet needs. So 5 physical, 5 emotional. So again, part of that detective work, you got those 6 pieces of the puzzle, and then we're looking for these things. The 5 physical, as medical professionals, these are ones that we are constantly monitoring. Intake, eating and drinking, hunger, thirst, energy, revved up or down, elimination, did they go? We have BM logs here, of course, because that can be constipation can be a huge source of discomfort and bringing challenging behaviors up. Discomfort, temperature, sensations, and then the last one, small but very mighty pain. And so many of our seniors have arthritis or other kinds of pain that can just, pain in your brain, it really can work things up. And then on the other side, emotional distress, just as real, just as important to address. And this is the hard one because, a lot of times, myself included, can be kind of clinical. And, it's easier in some ways to deal with the 5 physical than to try and meet someone where they are when they are angry, and it can be really scary. So sad, lonely, you can be in a wonderful place with lots of people around, even your own home, and still feel lonely and disconnected, scared and anxious. And then the last one, the pinky one, bored. It's harder. And sometimes these emotional needs can cover up the physical needs. So I'm displaying anger, right? Displaying, no. When really underneath I have constipation. So trying to, like I said, it's complicated. So it takes us stepping back, taking stock and looking to the brain now. This is where we're going to go. So when things start to go revved up, or sometimes people say start to go south, what's happening? Why are these people we're trying to help having such extreme reactions? It's all about the brain function. And here's the PET scan. I'm sure many of you have seen this one before. This is a brain on the left, is the normal aging brain. And this is someone with early Alzheimer's disease. And then the third one is late. And then the child, an 18-month-old child. So the centers that are circled are the primitive brain centers. So you'll see, even through the late stages, that is still intact. It's what keeps us alive. And it's remarkably similar to the child's brain center, active center of the primitive brain. One thing to note between the no dementia and then early Alzheimer's is to notice the big change. And I often tell our staff when I show this slide, the people with early Alzheimer's are not living at Halikuike. They're living in the community. They're driving. They are trying their best to manage their own finances and all those things. So the early changes is where they may hopefully come to you to try and figure out what's going on and how to best support those changes. So we all have it. We all have these primitive brains that keep us safe, right? So those autonomic fight, fright, flight, and pleasure seeking. We need both those things. They keep our engine running. They keep the wake, sleep, the hunger, thirst, pain responses, and they do help with learning new and remembering information. So if you think about someone who's living with dementia, you probably notice that some of these systems are not working so well anymore. Time awareness, place awareness, the pain awareness, all those things are starting to slip. But the survival part, that is strong. And so in those moments when you're trying to give me a shower and I'm getting more and more agitated, I might start pushing, I might start eventually hitting, I might start biting and spitting. What's happening? Why am I such an awful person? Why am I trying to hurt you? Pause, right? Pause. My limbic system is so worked up. I'm fighting for, I feel my brain is telling me that this is a life-threatening situation. You know it's not. You might have even asked me, time for your shower? You ready for your shower, Mrs. Colby? You're nodding, I'm nodding. But when you get me in there, all hell breaks loose. Once this is up here, once the agitation level, if you go like this, you start down here. Nobody starts out here. It's very rare for people to go from 0 to 100. It works its way up. But once you're up this high, it's hard to come back down. And telling me to calm down or shh, stop yelling. If you've had anybody tell you to calm down, calm down, what does that make you feel? It makes you more upset, more mad. Like, don't you tell me to calm down. Because you're invalidating how I feel. So we want to try not to trigger that amygdala response, because when the primitive brain takes over, the left temporal lobe, your language and speech, if you think about yourself, the moments when you've had, for me, like the times I felt my higher thinking shut off and my amygdala take over, is times when I felt like my life was in danger. So I almost hit somebody or almost got hit or was in an accident. That kind of like flood of panic. How well do you speak in those moments? Full sentences are not coming out of your mouth when you almost get hit by another car, right? It's probably curse words, right? So your higher speech doesn't do it. It's not working. How about your frontal cortex? Are that also, we don't have time for long reason thinking about anything. This is, I'm going to survive. That shuts off too. The occipital lobe, you start to get tunnel vision. So people ask, in those moments of like high fear, did you see this? And you say, no, I did. I only saw the car. It's nothing changed with your eyes. It's your brain you don't have time to take in all this data. You're focusing on the threat, right? So that's normal. That is normal, what your brain is supposed to do to keep you safe in those situations. Put that on top of a brain that's living with dementia. What's already happened? You can see here, left and right, in each of these pictures, normal brain with no disease process and someone who, in this case, Alzheimer's disease. My language is already impaired from the dementia, as is my occipital lobe. I already sort of have tunnel vision. And my frontal cortex is not working that great either. I already don't have good judgment and reasoning. And now my amygdala is up. So I didn't have that great function in the first place. And now it's a lot worse because of that being. So when the amygdala turns on, fight, fright, flight. Some people, and you may know this about yourself, are more fighters. So their first go-to is left hook. Some are more flight, run away, and some are more fright, just freeze. Anybody pushed to the limit, even the frighters, will eventually fight, right? This is about survival. But I want to pause for a moment. It's easy to recognize if you think about people that who are living with dementia in the situations where you think, oh yeah, that definitely was a fight response, or this was a flight response. But think about the fright response for a moment. And this is one, especially us who work in long-term care, I think it gets overlooked. freeze response. So you're giving me, but I use shower as an example a lot because it's a challenge that a lot of people face both at home and in care settings. I'm not fighting you. I'm not pulling away from you, but I'm like, I'm like, no, I'm thinking, no, wait, no, 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 no. Oh, but I don't push you away or do anything. You get the job done, great, you go on the way. Probably written in my chart is patient compliant with showering with okay. So yeah, okay, maybe I am. But did you look at me? So I'm terrified and kind of frozen and whimpering. And that's another, I am very unlikely. We looked at the brain and thought about what happens when the amygdala is up. I'm unlikely to be able to do much of anything after that, or it's going to be harder to communicate with me after that. But so everything we can do to avoid raising that up, even if it's one that we are quote unquote okay with because we're able to get the job done, we need to take a step back. Okay, well, one other thing before we go on to the next part about the amygdala is for the pleasure side, and when I feel I need relief, I need it now. So I can't wait. And sometimes it raises, we're going from I just want something, like want, to I need it. And that need, high level of need, also feels life-threatening. So I like to walk outside. I want to walk outside. I need to walk outside. I need you to open this door right now. I didn't want to swear there, but you've seen people wanting to go out that door. I need to go. I need to go. I have to go home. You've risen to this level, right? Something was missing. So there was some unmet need, some piece of the puzzle down here where it was like want, where we get up to the dangerous level. Where do we intervene generally? When it's down here, we can ignore it. When it goes up here, we might start paying attention. Definitely when it gets up here is when then we're like, oh God, we got to get away from the door, or whatever it is. So being able to recognize the signs earlier and to be able to intervene, meet that need, redirect, change something in the environment. This is too noisy, this is too bright, to try and not ever, well, you can't say never, but to reduce the amount of time, the number of times that you get to that point where it really is truly dangerous for me, the person living with dementia, and for you and for the family. So dangerous. So what can we do? I do a whole separate course on this part here, but the thing I want to, there's some simple things that you can start with, and they seem so simple that it's hard to imagine what a big impact it can have. Is number one is when I talked about tunnel vision. If you put your hands like this on your eyes, kind of like a scuba mask, or even a snorkel, what are these, binoculars here, and see how limited your field of active vision is. Think of that as the visual field for people who are living with dementia. That's a small, narrow window that they're able to focus on. They're not blind on this side, but they're focused, their area they're able to focus and really take in data is very, very narrow. Just making a point to be in the front, to come from the front slowly, to be in their visual range can make a huge, huge difference. It's so easy to startle because we think they could see us because we have good peripheral vision. So if I come from here, why I can't imagine that I would surprise them, but we do. And then that trigger goes off, right? So I'm here, so visual, put your thumb up, visual, verbal, and touch in that order. You have a better success rate of connecting and communicating and moving from wherever you want to move from one place to the next, or medications, bath. If you can get connected visually first, then verbally, and then touch. We love to talk. We generally start with the second one. We love to explain things and explain them again. I just told you we were going to take a bath. Pause. My language center of my brain is not functioning right. I might nod because you're nodding, but I'm not getting all the information. So visual cues first. Where we stand makes a difference. So these first two classic, who stands in front of you, like right in front of you? Authority figures. And if you think of someone who has that kind of tunnel vision, I can only see you, I feel very trapped. But if you're down to the side where they can see you, both these residents in these pictures are sitting. So in order to get into their visual field, our nurse and we had to really squat down. If someone's standing up, it's a little easier, but you want to try and not block their visual field. Just that small difference, instead of being here to be here. Big difference, big difference. Okay, visual cues, there's me in my full gear one day at work. You know, people who are living with dementia take in more information from what they see than anything that comes out of your mouth. And we've all been quite impaired in that way. I'm sure you've had times where you have not been able to recognize someone because of all the gear we're wearing, or have trouble understanding because you can't see the facial expressions. So visual cues become even more important because we all have to wear masks. So whatever we say, pair it with a visual cue too. You want something to drink? We're going to stand up. So you're using your words, but always, I mean, it was always important. And there was something that we, Positive Approach to Care, we taught before all this, but it's even more important now with the masks. Keep the verbal cues simple, again, especially with the mask, because we're all a little muffled. Keep it simple and clear, and lower voices. Speaking low and slow works a lot better. Okay, and then the touch cues, touch, right? That's the third one. Okay, visual, verbal, touch, we went over that. So this is what I was saying the other webinar that I do is about this positive physical approach, coming in from the front, moving into a handshake and getting into a supportive stance to the side. So I'm going to play this short little video of me greeting a resident who's a little bit sleepy right there. But I don't want to surprise her and just tap her and say, hey. Okay, here we go. So visual, then verbal, and then finally touch. And that's when we can get connected and talk. Okay, oops. Okay, so even when someone is distressed, getting connected first. You know, you keep safety in mind, but you want to get connected, and then trying supportive communication, and then moving to a new place. Because one of the things with the challenging behaviors is person with dementia, get stuck in a loop. I can't get out of this banging on the door, right? I can't stop. I can't stop doing it. I can't stop pounding on the table. And it's not because I'm trying to make your life worse. I'm trying to make my life better. So they need us to help that way. Okay, so if something you're doing is not working, stop, back off, think it through, and then reapproach and try something slightly different. And when things do work, you're going to want to share it with everybody around that's the stakeholders, because we all need to learn, and it's a constant learning journey. Because we as human beings are learning about dementia, learning about what this person needs, but we're also having to learn constantly because it's constantly changing, because the dementia is going to progress. There's no changing that. So, okay, we already went over this one here. So what we need to do is to make sure that we use and build our skills, and remember who has the healthy brain. And people who are living with dementia are really doing the best they can in any given moment. And I know those challenging moments are so challenging, and it can be hard because you want it to stop. And I think the most common phrasing of a question I get, and you may too, is it starts with, how do I get my mother to stop, and then fill in the blank. How do I get her to stop, yelling at the neighbor? How do I get her to stop, picking at her skin? How do I get, whatever it is, which we just want them to stop. And whew, so it's hard because they, like I said, they can't stop doing what they're doing, but they can become connected with us, and they can focus on something else for a little bit, and then they can move with our help to a new place. So, for example, I had a lady at was a resident here at Halikuike who was trying to go into the kitchen door, the door to the commercial kitchen, and was getting really upset by the kitchen door being closed, and a staff person had put themselves like in between her and the kitchen door. And so residents here, staff persons here. So how comfortable do you feel with someone like right up in your face, like, no, you can't go in there? What do you think that did for her agitation level? And the staff person was trying to keep her safe. He's scared. She wants this thing. She wants to go through this door. He's scared for her because that's a dangerous place for her. And the two of them were stuck. They were stuck. So she is slamming her walker down on the ground, right? And staff kind of scatter a little bit because it's unsafe to be near her at that moment. We approached her from a safe distance, and that same thing that you saw me do with the lady who was sleeping, getting down low, not telling her to stop, but reaching my hand out, and just she waiting for her to reach her hand out, and she did, and she took my hand, and I just like shook my head with her that that's not right. Let's get out of here. Yeah, just get out of here. And turned it. She's not the one who's doing anything wrong. She's trying her best in that moment, and we need to acknowledge that to be able to this. These people are crazy. Yeah, you're right about that. We do a lot of like, yeah, you're right about that. You're totally right. I'm sorry. That goes a long way too. I'm sorry, this is hard. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak to you like a child. I'm sorry. Yeah, even when you are totally right, that can be a hard thing to do, but it makes a huge, huge difference. The last thing on this list here, forgiving yourself, you're only human. And I know for us as providers in this field that we've chosen, we give more than 100%, our whole hearts and selves. We need to be kind to ourselves and forgive ourselves too, because we will make mistakes as well. And to be able to back up, rethink, try something else, it really will go a long way, and to support your families that you're helping in that way too. So a lot of you have a patient, but your patient has a family, and it's a package deal. Yeah, they come together. So helping a lot of times, one of the greatest things you can do for your patient is to get to have the care partner, the caregiver, whether it's a professional or family, to get help as well, because the burnout rate is so high. And then here specifically, helping them build a care team. So if there are recommendations that you can give them, to whether it's for things like this, like it doesn't have to be me, but more education if they're interested, support groups, and helping them build a care team, whether they are with an internist, and then now they need a geriatrician, maybe they need a geriatric psychiatrist, or whatever it is that they need to build that team, so that the person and the family has that support, and you have that support as well, because no one of us can carry that person living with dementia alone through the course of their journey. It really takes all of us. So these slides here, I left them in, even though I know the audience is largely professional, but I know many of you probably have people living with dementia in your life, like as I did. This can be really hard. It could be a really big barrier to being able to to see the person and accept them where they are in this journey, challenges and all, is letting go of how it used to be and how it should be and how I should be. If I were a better daughter, I would be able to do this. I'm sure you've heard that from family members, but to acknowledge that the person they're caring for, they are who they were, what they're different, and so are we. We're all changed by this journey. Okay. So just, I'm getting pretty close to the end here. Wanting to take a look at what we're good at and not. So this is something to look at with the care team for the family, to see, sometimes a family member might be an excellent caregiver and sometimes they're just not cut out for it, and to try and find other people to help support that. So I want to show a quick video. This is Teepa Snow and this lady named Leona. This is a real care facility on the mainland, and this lady, you'll see she has like a sweater and gloves. She came in from an excursion outside cold weather, and you'll see is hitting chairs with a maraca. She apparently has been doing it for over an hour, and none of the staff could get her to stop. And you can imagine what the impact on the other residents was. I can tell you. So anyway, I wanted to play this here so you can get a chance to see Teepa working with this lady who's having a great challenge. They know she needs to use the bathroom, but will not stop making this noise.
Challenging behaviors, that's how we see it. They're misbehaving, they have problem behaviors. We've got to do something about this. Now I'm gonna call a timeout right now, because the biggest problem we have right here is you've already identified the source of the behavior. You're pretty sure it's them and what they're doing. Time out. You need to take a step back and realize this is much more complicated than you think. And instead of being such a strong judge and jumping to conclusions, what I want you to do is back off and reframe this. I want you to realize that they're doing the very best they can to try to communicate with you, to meet a need, to express that they aren't liking what you're doing. And unfortunately, you simply see it as not getting your way. What you don't realize is that you started this very frequently in your effort to be helpful. Let me just say to you, you weren't as helpful as you thought you were. I didn't really enjoy the help you gave me. I didn't get it. So you have a choice right now. Are you going to continue to push your agenda to try to get where you want? Or can you take that step back and go, okay, well, this isn't working. Let me rethink. So what you want to do when you experience a behavior you're not liking, you need to, whoa, take that step back. Take a deep breath, let it go, and realize now it's time to kick in the front of your brain and to become a really good detective. Try to figure out what might be driving what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, and what they're feeling. What maybe you're smelling and they're not picking up on, what they're tasting versus what you would be tasting. Because what you want to do is realize that you need to see it from their side. And once you see it from their side, you try to be in their shoes, figure this out. Suddenly, when you see things, hear things, experience things differently, and you make that choice, that decision to do that, the uh-oh becomes an aha, because you can start to realize it's the setting, it's the care, it's the gem. It's who they were before this all started. There's lots of pieces to the puzzle. Your job, if you want to do this well and do this over the course of this condition, is to stop the judgment, time yourself out, and reframe this behavior. Go from a challenging and frustrating, I just don't understand why she's doing this, to pausing for yourself, getting some help, maybe getting somebody else to take a look with you, because maybe you just can't see it because of who you are and how it works. But what you're going to do is take that step back, look more broadly, and at that point, make a decision. What are they trying to do? Are they communicating an unmet physical need? There's basically 5 of them you want to learn about. Or an unmet emotional need. Or are you seeing the emotional need, but you're missing the physical need? Or was it something that is happening in the environment or happened earlier today? As I said, complicated. So you need some training. You need to know what's going on and what's not going on so you can quit sitting in judgment and start using this. That's the best tool. That and your ability to bring people together to help you. So with challenging behaviors, it's not about them. It's about us and what we choose to do about this effort to communicate an unmet need and helping us figure out what is the need and how can we better meet it for success for both of us. Making a positive difference because we choose positive approach to the care. Now remember this lady? What do you think she's doing? You see her beating on the chairs, making noise, annoying people, and you know she needs to go to the bathroom. It's been a long time. You've tried to make her stop, but she won't. What if I told you she used to clean houses for a living? I'm going to try substitution and a positive approach rather than trying to make her quit.
Miss Leona. Well, hey there.
Get out, get your hand.
Get my hand out the way. You're trying to get them clean. Here, try this.
She's a busy woman.
There you go.
I'm going to
that.
try a substitution here.
I'll trade you.
Not yet. Show her.
Rub it with that. Can you rub it?
Yeah.
Here, rub
We're
it.
getting there.
Trade me. Trade me.
Wait.
Trade me. Here you go. Take this.
All right, get it.
You got it. Now trade out. There you go.
Ta-da.
Now rub it.
Now I show her, and there she goes.
There we go.
People
Good.
are less annoyed, not so much noise. And she's cleaning. Now I want to reinforce it. That's good. That's good.
2 more to go.
But I still haven't met
You're doing a fantastic job.
her unmet need. One more substitution.
Nicely done, Leona.
She needs to get finished with this
Boy, you are good.
so we can move on.
You get this one?
Watch me, I'm sneaky.
That's it. Good. Good.
I visually eliminate the task.
Whoa. Woo! That is beautiful. You did a fantastic job. Man, you're a good cleaner.
Here.
Thank you. All right, well, come with me and we'll sit down and take a break.
Oh, God.
I know you're ready for
I'm
one, aren't you?
tired.
Now,
don't
before
blame
she
you.
goes to sit
You're
down,
worn
though,
out.
we have a place to go.
Oh, girl, you worked hard.
Oh, God.
You are one of the hardest working women I've ever met.
Yeah.
Well, Lord knows. Let's go to the ladies before we sit down, though.
Okay.
Okay.
We changed the challenge to success.
Okay. Yeah, I love that lady. She is hard working and she really needed to finish that job. That was her need, but she couldn't finish on her own. She needed help in getting to that conclusion. So thank you so much for spending this almost an hour with me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. This slide has information about where you can go for more videos and more information about the positive approach to care. So I'm open for questions now.
Dorothy, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation as always. For the audience, please type your questions in the chat box. Dorothy, while we're waiting for people to put in questions,
Sure.
I had a question about, often the family that's having a hard time managing, sometimes they are very reluctant to put the person in a care home or in a nursing home, even though they might be really struggling.
Yeah.
What do you do to, obviously we want to keep people at home as long as possible, but if it doesn't look safe anymore, what do you do to talk to those families about that decision?
Yeah, it is. It's such a hard decision for any family, and it's one for myself. I have to keep in mind it's one I can't make for them, but I can support them in the journey towards that decision. It's a common question that I get is, how do I know when it's time? And it generally, if you're asking me that question, it was probably about 6 months ago or more, because it takes a lot, because it's hard to, we as the outsiders, like can see it so clearly. But when you're living so intertwined for so long and the change maybe is gradual, the caregiver just adapts and they think they can keep adapting. And unfortunately, sometimes something has to come to a breaking point before they were willing to make that change. Whether it's, I've had families tell me this, my physician told me, if I don't make this change or, find a long-term care setting for my mother, I'm going to have a heart attack. Or I've had families whose hair is falling, losing hair, literal hair before they move in. And so, having someone, I could help direct the support to them too. But yeah, no, there's no easy answer to that one, Dr. Masaki. It's, you can't make someone see it. And it's
Yeah, I
tough.
think we all deal with that challenge.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
next question is, they've used this education with caregivers,
mhm, mhm.
but the biggest hurdle has been, as Teepa put it, is not on them to change, it's on us as caregivers. How else can I get buy-in from caregivers to implement these behavioral changes? Most fixate on medications and expectations of healthcare to fix the problem rather than
Yeah,
caregivers changing their own practice in caregiving.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it is, we want to we want to have all the tools in our toolbox, and having medical support and medications being part of that can make a huge, huge difference. But it it can be, there's a lot of stigma around dementia for families and family caregivers, a lot of equating it with mental illness and like that it's that person's not fault but problem, and it's the problem's not with me. And so I think reframing it as and not shaming caregivers, like, well, if you did this different, or if you watched this Teepa video and followed this, there's no magic wand, but making sure that they know that they are supported, and trying to find small things that they're willing to try. Even if it's something, you might pick something different for the first thing they're willing to try, but something small that they are, small achievable goals. Whether it's a professional caregiver or at-home caregiver, or kind of let me back up a little bit. The other thing is, if there are more than one stakeholder in the family, starting with the person who's most responsive to you. So, if there's one sibling or one, in a care setting like this, which staff members are most open-minded and willing to start? So start with the low-hanging fruit and then work your way wider. But also acknowledging change takes time. And as long as it took for this person to get to this point in their journey with dementia, it took that long for this caregiver to get to that point too. And people cannot just change. And even if you want to, it takes learning new habits, like even something as simple as coming from the front and going slowly. That's a hard one to learn because we're used to rushing around and coming in, but that kind of conscious practice, it just takes time. It just takes time. Yeah.
The next question is from one of our incoming fellows. I have worked with caregivers who aren't willing or able to put in the time to learn these strategies. They just want medication, especially at night, to help everyone sleep. Do you have any suggestions for sleep?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a tough one. That's one of those kind of things that pushes people to look at long-term care when the caregiver just is not getting sleep, because we can't sustain that for very long. The thing for sleep is that piece of the puzzle time, looking back in the day, what's going on during the day that is happening before it's time for bed. How much are they sleeping during the day? I mean, as people get older, and especially as the dementia progresses, they will sleep more, but is it most of the day? What kind of engagement do they have? Do they have things to do? Because if I'm sleeping during the day, there's going to be some time when I'm awake and have energy, and that's probably not when you want me to. So adjusting that piece of the puzzle. And in terms of talking with families about medication, and with sleep, and it's no one thing is a fix, unfortunately. So while we would look at you might, for whatever it is, might be looking at medications or looking at, we need everybody to help in a little bit in a lot of different areas to make a difference in this person's life. So, unfortunately, there isn't one fix. And I need me, the doctor, or me, the long-term care specialist here, I need your help as much as you need mine. Together we can help this person, so that's the approach that I tend to try and take, because it's true, these techniques that I'm teaching, they're not going to fix everything either. Medication won't fix everything, and neither, but together we can move to a better place, yeah.
Right. And I completely agree with you, Dorothy. I think keeping people up and active in the daytime is really key, so that then they're tired at night instead of sleeping all day and then being up all night.
Yeah,
One last
this rhythm of the day. Yeah. Go ahead.
One last question. What other ways to deal with burnout when caregivers just want to give up since nothing is working?
Yeah. The burnout, when you get to the point of actually being burned out, you're burned out. It's being able to identify it earlier so you don't get to that point. Even when you think about, when people are parenting young children, and the people living dementia are not children, they're mature adults, and we treat them as that. But the level of safety awareness gets to be about the same. So the caregiver is just on high alert all the time, and you just can't look away or step away for a minute. The amount of time that you're in that phase with a child is much shorter than the decades you could possibly be in it with someone who's living with dementia. And it's a marathon and not a sprint. And you really just need support all along the way. But when someone's burned out, I think part of it is acknowledging the burnout, you, the caregiver, your health and wellness is as important as the person that you're caring for, because that person can't make it without you. And if you don't get help, or even if it means if you can't step away and have somebody else step in, whether it's a long-term care setting or another family member, you are not going to make the end of this. You're not going to make the finish line. It's not uncommon for a caregiver to pass away before the person that they're caring for.
Thank you very much. I think we've reached the end of our questions, Dorothy.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, there's a reminder from Michaela. Please make sure that you do the evaluations, which is required for CME. There is a link in the chat box, and you can also look at the invitation for the link or our website. And all these grand rounds are recorded and placed on our website. So if you missed part of it, or if you have a friend who missed it, you can always go back and watch. Dorothy, I wanted to thank you again for a wonderful grand rounds. We will definitely be inviting you again to talk about your many different topics that you have expertise in. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.